If you use a gimbal or do lots of gimbal work, you've got to check out what I've been using recently. I love this setup and you might as well. Here's why. Hit record there and it records on the camera without having to touch the camera. I can zoom in and out on the 24-70 there without having to touch the lens. I've got all day battery life, so you will never need to change a battery for a whole day shoot. And you know how when you use a gimbal for a while, you start to feel it in your back and your arms? Well, I attached a strap here, and now you can just literally let go to relieve you for a couple of minutes, but you can actually use it hands-free as well. It does work. If you want to see everything I've got, everything you might need to build something like this, stick around. And this video is sponsored by Epidemic Sound. I have an exclusive offer for viewers of this channel. If you use the code on the screen just here, you'll get your first month free, but also 50% off your whole first year. Now, at the center of everything that we use in this build, we have a gimbal. Now, I went with the Ronin S2. Why? Well, it supports the most weight, and it also has the best battery life. Now, the camera I'm actually using for this build is the Sony FX3, but you could use whatever camera you want. You would just need to buy the parts relevant to your camera. They make different versions for the battery. You would need probably a slightly different cage as well. Now, I'm using the Sigma 24-70 because it's an incredibly versatile lens. You can use it to pretty much shoot anything and everything, and I didn't want to have to be able to physically turn it. I wanted to actually be able to do it on the gimbal itself so I can have two hands on the gimbal at all times. Now, to allow me to do that, I'm actually using the Ronin Focus Motor. Traditionally, the way that you would mount that would be with one of these little riser plates just there. So on the front, that is where it would screw in. You'd put this on the bottom of the camera, and then you could put two screws in there and attach something that would allow a rail to go on there, and then the focus motor would attach directly to that. As I am using this battery, which raises the height, it means the gap between where this is meant to attach and this, it doesn't work out very well. There's no way to make the focus motor work. So I had to come up with a different solution, which is why I'm using this SmallRig half cage, specifically designed for the Sony FX3, and it actually has a gap in the top there for putting a rail. Now, it does work, of course, with the Ronin's focus motor as well, with one caveat, that being SmallRig uses a different rail size to what the Ronin focus motor uses. So basically, because the rail on the Ronin focus motor is smaller, I just put some gaff tape around it, wrapped it around nicely, and so it just slides into the hole just here. And then when I tighten this up, it grips on that gaff tape with no issue whatsoever. So as you can see right there, that focus motor will now control the Sigma 24-70 with no issues. Now, I'm sure there's options out there in terms of adjusting the rail size to make it work. Gaff tape works just fine, so no reason to spend any extra money. In terms of the battery, that attaches to the Sony FX3 here to give us that all-day battery life. We're using an Anton Bauer Titan base, something I've talked about in very, very many videos. Real-time indication on the front there of how much power in terms of remaining time you have left. P-tap, D-tap, they're the same thing. It charges via that, it outputs via that, it has a USB-A out port on there as well, and it has its own base plate system. Throw your dummy battery in, like so. Get that cable tucked around the front there, and that's it. It's on there, it's good to go. This thing is now powered. Then on the bottom of my Anton Bauer Titan base, I actually attach this little plate, which then allows me to put this directly onto the Ronin.
That seems like a pretty good place to quickly talk about today's sponsor, which is Epidemic Sound. But don't skip ahead yet. The offer I have for you today is substantially better than anything I've actually ever had before. If you use the code MAGICALLY, which will appear on the screen just here, you will actually get, I want to confirm this, 50% off of the annual personal plan. Now, that is an offer exclusively for viewers of this channel. If you make videos, you know you need music for videos, and sometimes actually that can be a real pain to do. I want to show you a tool that I actually really like about Epidemic that saves me a ton of time. Hit Epidemic's homepage. It will actually show me right at the top here, based off of my recent downloads, tracks that I'm likely going to want to use. So let's just try this one. It's literally perfect. Done. All right, we're going to download that just by clicking the little button just there. We're going to download the full mix. Go to Finder, throw that directly into the timeline because I'm savage and that is the way that I put things into Final Cut. Bring that down to about -29 and
somewhere in the middle.
It's as easy and as simple as you just saw right there. I don't need to go and license tracks individually. Once you have an account, you can download whatever you want. There's over 35,000 tracks, over 90,000 sound effects. Slap them in the timeline, export, send to YouTube. Everything is cleared. You're set. Thank you, Epidemic Sound, for sponsoring today's video.
Now, you're thinking, well, I'm using a Sigma 24-70, how are you gonna balance that? Well, that's part of the reason I wanted to go with the Ronin S2 as well. The motors in this are powerful, so if the balance is slightly off, which it will be if you're zooming in and out all the time, it will counter those little imbalances. So what you want to do is balance this somewhere in the middle, 24 to 70. When the lens is fully extended there around 70, you probably want to go halfway, so probably about 40 is a good place to balance it. Recommendation for you is to obviously calibrate the gimbal when it is turned on the first time doing this, like we're doing right now. It will look super janky and shaky when it does that, but that's normal. It will also make those horrible sounds. Now, to be able to control the focus motor on the gimbal and also the camera functions, the gimbals come with all the necessary cables to do so in the box. So for the FX3 here, I need to use a multi to USB-C port cable. So on the top of the gimbal right here, USB-C to multi-interface port, which on the FX3 is that one just there. And then you actually need to turn on in the Sony menus the option to have PC remote control. You'll have to turn off smartphone control if you have that turned on. Once it's connected, you can literally hit record and it will start recording on there. Stop record, it will stop recording. For the focus motor, as I want to use that, I need to use the second USB port, plug in there, and then plug in to the focus motor. A little tip when you're actually using the focus motor, you want to make sure that everything is super tight as you can get it by hand. You might find that when it starts to move, it doesn't do it as smoothly as it possibly could, or it might skip a couple of teeth. So you want to make sure that everything is snug and tightly connected there, and then I can zoom in and out nice and easily. Now on the gimbal itself, you can actually swipe up just there and go dial functions, and you can control what that dial will actually do there. So if you weren't using the focus motor, as I said earlier, you go through and change that to ISO, aperture, even shutter. There's a few options in there, but in this case I'm using the focus motor, so we're going to go back, and you can actually change the dial speed and the smoothness as well. So if you wanted to be able to zoom in and out faster or slower, you could actually change that, and you can actually change the smoothness as well. I kind of like it so that it's smoother, because then it just, when you let go, it just is a slow roll off opposed to just a hard stop. So I have my smoothness set to 30 and my dial speed set to 30. In terms of the speed that it can go up to, so this is set to 100, so it can go pretty fast. Now at this point you're probably wondering about audio. For myself, if I'm using a setup like this, I'm either at one of two locations for client work. A wedding, in which case I don't need the audio. I just need the ambient scratch audio to match up with audio that's being recorded elsewhere via lapel, via a DJ board. Now the other situation where I'm going to be using a gimbal setup like this is to follow a realtor around as they are touring and showcasing a home. For that, I'm going to be using wireless audio, and it's going to be the Sennheiser AVX system, which goes right onto the top there. XLR to 3.5mm directly into the camera. They have a pack on the back of their pants or their belts and lapel system, and the audio is going directly into the camera. It's not picking up any focus sound. When you start with gimbals, you're gonna just have the gimbal like this, and it's fine, it operates all right like that, but after a while you'll start to realize that there is better options out there, like these two SmallRig handles that I use, which they're not the cheapest things in the world. They're pretty pricey, but I love these ones. Wooden on the bottom there, so they're a little bit nicer to hold opposed to just straight metal. The nice thing about these ones is you can actually loosen them off and rotate these, so the angle of the handle is completely adjustable as well. On the side of the Ronin S2 here, you actually see there is two NATO mounting positions there, so you can literally just slide this on, tighten this up like so, and that's one handle on there, and then the other handle like so. Get that straight again. So you can see how quickly you can adjust those handles if you wanted to. And then that is way easier to hold a gimbal and just so much more comfortable. If you wanted to, you could go like this, and now you can go into underslung mode. So the option to do that is there as well. Pretty flexible with this setup, and that's why I built it the way I have with these specific parts. Now I was using this setup at the weekend, and after a while I really started to feel it in my back. So I wanted to see if there was another option, another solution, just to alleviate some of that weight now and then when I need it. And I came up with something that's strange, but it works incredibly well. So these are two little things from, well, so this is actually what they are from. This is for something photographers use. I played about with this for video last year. It's not as good for video. These actually have a name. I don't know what it's called, but I will link the parts down below. And what I did here is I just attached two Peak Design anchors. And now I can screw these in wherever I want them to be, like that. They're quick and easy to put on and off, but like they're not really in the way. And then once you have those anchors attached, you can literally clip in my Peak Design strap here and it just gives you a way to let go and relax for a couple of minutes. And the legs I'm using here, which are the Ronin legs, they actually go right onto where my belt is, which is probably all height specific for me, but now if you really wanted to, you could go hands-free here. It's a weird setup, it's a weird look, but you'd be amazed at how much it does to alleviate the pressure from your arms, just for a couple of minutes to give you a little bit of a break from carrying that for a whole day.
Hello, this video was actually finished, and at the weekend I shot another wedding and I decided to try using the harness that we talked about earlier with the gimbal, the exact same setup, just connected to the harness. And it works really well, if not better, if I'm honest. So, that is another option for you too.
So if you want to build something like this, all the parts are going to be listed down below. It's a weird setup, but it works. When I have something that really works well, I like to share it with you guys, because if it works for me, it might work for some of you as well. If it can help me out, make my life a little bit easier, maybe potentially likewise for you too. Thank you for watching today. I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.